Today, Chris has brought up the subject of polygamy. The missionaries really don't want to talk about this. You see, Mormon men used to be able to marry as many women as they wanted. To some men, that may sound like a pretty sweet deal.
Can you explain to me why your church promoted polygamy? Was Joseph Smith just into women?
Of course not. That wasn't the reason. God commanded his prophet Joseph Smith to restore the doctrine. If you know the Bible, you know that it was common practice, and it was mentioned in the Old Testament.
Actually, it wasn't a common practice. Show me in the Bible, anywhere in the Bible, where God commanded someone to take another wife.
I can't think of any verse where he commanded it, but there was prophets who did it, and God certainly didn't object.
Remember Cain, who became the first murderer when he killed his brother Abel?
Sure.
The very first polygamist in the Bible was a descendant of Cain. His name was Lamech. If you know the story, Lamech was not a good guy.
Okay, look, plural marriage or polygamy isn't a popular doctrine these days.
That's an understatement.
But your prophet Brigham Young taught that when Adam came into the Garden of Eden, he brought Eve, one of his wives, with him.
Wait a minute, that's not in the Bible, is it?
Brigham also taught that the only men who become gods are those who enter into polygamy.
I'm not familiar with that teaching.
It's from the Journal of Discourses, which isn't the Bible. It's a collection of speeches by Mormon leaders, and it's coming from a man who had 55 wives. The Bible clearly states that God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Eve, and Jessica, and Priscilla.
However, there's no denying that great men in the Bible practice plural marriage. That's right, and it says in the Doctrine of Covenants that God gave wives and concubines to David and Solomon.
God wasn't silent about it, not at all. In Deuteronomy, God commanded the future king of Israel to not multiply wives to himself. This is an explicit command against polygamy because the king, who is the representative of the people, should be a model and example for the people. In the New Testament, Jesus taught that it is two in a marriage, not three or four, which make one. And Paul specifically taught in Timothy that church leaders are to have only one wife. Although polygamy was a cultural custom, it was never a doctrine.
Well, even though the LDS Church doesn't practice it anymore, we believe it was, at one time, a commandment given to Joseph Smith. Whatever God commands is right. At one time, he commanded his people to do it. Now he commands them not to do it.
You realize that polygamy continues to be promoted in Mormonism by the simple fact that Doctrine and Covenants section 132 is a major part of church canonized scripture. Why hasn't it been removed? I'll tell you why. Because polygamy is still practiced and accepted spiritually by the church.
What?
Let's say the wife of a Mormon man dies, and they were sealed in the temple. Sealing is how Mormons refer to a marriage ordinance performed in the temple by a high priest, right?
Right?
Okay, so now this man can be sealed or married to another woman in the temple. Current examples of this happening are your own prophet, Russell M. Nelson, and apostle, Dallin Oaks. Go back to our example. If that second wife also dies, the man can be sealed to a third wife, and guess what? Mormonism teaches that the man will have all three wives in the afterlife. Joseph Smith taught that plural marriage is required for men and women to obtain exaltation and to become gods. And speaking of polygamy, Mormon apostle Bruce R. McConkie wrote, and I quote, "The holy practice will commence again after the second coming and the ushering in of the millennium."
If you liked this video, give us a thumbs up. Hated it? Give us a thumbs down. Help support us by subscribing to this channel. Don't forget to check out the description below to learn more. Thanks for watching Talking to Mormons.